Hi guys, welcome to Tracked Live, Ask the Expert How to Build a Business. So with this live stream, you guys are going to get the chance to hear on how to start your own business from an expert entrepreneur. So quickly, I'm just going to introduce myself. My name's Ellie. I am a Tracked content creator. I am a freshman at Northeastern University in Boston. My major is Media and Screen Studies and Communications, which basically means that I watch films and TV shows and see how they impact our communication and our daily lives. And I am also the creator of the Tracked Learning Path, How to Start Your Own Business, Entrepreneurship for Kids. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that learning path. So if you haven't already taken it, I definitely recommend it. You will learn how to, one, think of your $1 million idea, to create a sales pitch for your product or business. And you're also going to learn how to make a profit, how to make money. And there's so much more. So I definitely hope you guys check it out. And then I am just going to turn it over to our guest expert, Brian Rzepecki. He is a business founder and CEO of the company Jump. And I'll turn it over to him so he can introduce himself to you guys.
Hi, thanks for the intro. I founded a company. Initially, it was called Social Bicycles, and we were the first company to put a cell phone connection and an integrated locking system onto a bike that you could find and book via a smartphone app. And I had that idea a long time ago, all the way back in 2008, when the iPhone was only about a year old, and the idea of putting a cell connection onto a bike was kind of crazy, and probably most people on this call weren't even born yet. So 2008 was an early year to kind of have this type of insight. I built that business over a number of years, eventually making the bikes electric, and rebranding the company to Jump, which we thought was a better fit for kind of a strong consumer tech company. Ultimately, we ended up being acquired by Uber in 2018, and we integrated our bikes into the Uber app. I spent about a year and a half at Uber before leaving at the end of last year. So I really went through the whole spectrum, from literally the initial idea and the initial napkin sketch all the way through selling the company, and the pain and turmoil and triumph along the way. So I'm really excited to talk to younger people that are thinking about what it takes to become an entrepreneur. And kind of cultivate a growing interest in starting a business.
Amazing. Thank you so much. When did you know when you wanted to become an entrepreneur? Was this something that you were always interested, or did you kind of realize that later in life?
Yeah, so for me, it was pretty early. It started with doing a lawn care business in my neighborhood. I passed out business cards and got a book of neighbors as clients. And I would shovel driveways, I would mow lawns, and I would do basic lawn work. And I did that at a pretty young age. And for me, it was, I guess, a first taste of entrepreneurship. And I don't know that I thought of it that way. It was just, a hustle to get a little bit of money in my pocket. Mm-hmm. But I think it was the first steps toward being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So we can just go right into, we know that a big part of kind of being an entrepreneur is really identifying a need that you see in your community. What was the need that you identified when you were creating your company, Jump?
Sure. So I first of all, I rediscovered biking in my mid-20s in New York City. Just discovered what a great way it is to get around, and was so excited about it that I would talk to all my friends and say, hey, why don't you bike? Is so convenient. And I, through that, started to realize that there's all these barriers in place for people to start biking. They don't want to spend $500 or $1,000 to buy a bike, and they don't, they don't know if they're going to use it. They don't know where they're going to park it, and all these type of problems. They can't put it in their apartment. And so bike sharing was a really great way for people to get access to a bike without having to go through the burdens of ownership. And so in 2007, there was a big bike share system that launched in Paris called the Libre. I saw that, I got really interested in it, and I saw that as a potential great way for people to get biking. I had the idea in 2008 to take the technology kind of out of the docking station and put it on the bike to make it more convenient for the users and make it a lower cost system. And so I saw kind of the opportunity with bike share and the increasing of cycling in cities, and I saw technology as a way of evolving that and making it more accessible, affordable, and convenient. And so that's kind of how I got going, and I had that idea, in 2008, incorporated the business 2010, and took really a decade to realize the idea.
So what would your advice be for someone who's trying to kind of identify their own need or come up with their own $1 million idea?
Yeah, I've never been, I always think it starts with a problem. You have to find a problem that you're really, really passionate about and care about, and that bothers you, and that you want to dedicate your life towards solving. I don't necessarily think it's something we could sit in a room and just kind of brainstorm things that you think would be good businesses or make money. Some people do that, and some people do okay doing that. But I think it really begins with having passion for a problem and deciding that you want to be the person to solve that problem. And then from there, there's ways to identify what's going to be a bigger opportunity. What are things that are going to make, potentially a bigger business than others. But really I think it starts with finding a problem that you want to fall in love with.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say is the most important trait of a good entrepreneur?
And number one is just perseverance, that, being able to continue on working and being resilient despite all the hard things that come along the way. There's other things, like creativity and there's other kind of important things. But the number one thing is just being able to persevere and to get through hard times, because almost every business, the most successful businesses you read about today, the years, they all had to go through something that was very, very difficult. And so having the ability to withstand that and to succeed through that, I think, is the most important thing.
Yeah, that's kind of a perfect segue into my next question, which was about how does experience kind of failure kind of play a role into ultimately finding success? I don't know if you wanted to add anything else onto that, or your own experience with that, and just, yeah.
I think I always say, we always had just enough success to keep going. Most of our years was mostly experiencing failure. I was mostly experiencing difficulty and rejection, whether it comes to trying to win a new contract or to get investment. And so it's constantly being able to get through that, learn from that what you need to, and then get to the next phase. But you never really truly fail unless you give up. And that gets to the perseverance thing. As long as you can kind of fight through it and you're still alive, you're still in the game, then something good can happen. Yeah, I think the success is really just who's the last person standing, and who's able to kind of weather all those little mini failures and just stay alive long enough for something good to happen.
Right. So last question, what do you think is the most important piece of advice that you would give to a young person who really wants to start a business one day?
Yeah, it comes down to two things, really. Find that problem that you're passionate about, that you really care about, and you want to be the person to solve, and then find people that you really want to solve it with, right? So find really good people that care about this problem and want to go on that journey with you. So those are the two things. Just find something you care about, and then find people that you're really excited to work with, and that you can kind of have come on the journey with you. And then everything else is, I think when you do experience the hard time, then you want to keep going because you care so much about the problem, and then also because you don't want to let your teammates down, right? And so I think those are the two ingredients that really help you persevere, is having a problem that you care so much about and people that you really care about as well.
Right. Okay, so awesome. I think that's kind of a good segue into our challenge part of our live stream. So this is going to be called the Rapid Fire Entrepreneurship Challenge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give Ryan a quick idea. So I know we kind of talked about the identifying the need, and so my business idea is definitely revolves around a current need that we have right now living in pandemic. So my business idea is a local business where you can run errands or buy groceries for those in your city or town that are at a higher risk for getting coronavirus. So maybe the elderly or also those with underlying health conditions. So I'm just going to ask you kind of like the steps that you would take to create a business plan. So first, kind of how would you determine your customers?
Sure. So, yeah, I mean, I'd start by just asking folks in my network, anybody that's in this type of situation. And then you do kind of customer discovery. You try to ask and see if you can talk to any of these people and understand their problem and what is difficult for them. I'd process, start to identify how they're meeting their needs now, whether they're just going out, less frequently, whether they have a friend or a family person that's already doing these errands for them, or whether they're using existing services like DoorDash, Uber Eats, or Instacart, those type of things. Are they using what is replacing that need now?
Right.
And then think about, okay, if you are going to enter the market, how do you offer something that that meets that need better, right? And so since there are delivery apps, are there additional services you can provide that delivery apps don't really do? Is the fact that maybe some of these are an elderly population and they're not as fluent with technology, and so offering more of an in-person or over the phone, a more manual type process, is that something that would be appealing to them? So yeah, I'd understand, I would try to, through the people in my network, find somebody I could talk to understand their problem, to understand how they're solving their problem now, and then understand what you could do with your product or service that would solve it better than what they're doing right now.
Okay, and quickly, I think we have a question from one of the viewers. So Rachel asks, when you were developing your idea and proposing it, did you have to deal with rejection, and how did you do this? Great question, Rita. I'm also curious about this.
I didn't come from a technology background, and I didn't come from the right geography. I wasn't in the middle of Silicon Valley. It was really, really hard to get that initial interest and investment. So most of my early years, particularly when it came to raising money, was just constant rejection. I think that I found really early success with the press, kind of the general public and the press got really excited about the concept. I found a decent amount of traction pretty early on with cities as a customer. And every year we kind of got bigger and bigger cities to sign up and to choose our product. But it was really, really just constant rejection with investors, as we didn't kind of fit the profile. And it was early, like basically the business in those early years was selling bicycles to government. And so hardware is generally kind of difficult, have a hard time with. And then government sales take a long time to make a government sale, and investors don't generally find that very attractive. And so it was hard. And then, but we kept alive long enough, we persevered long enough. And then, so finally in 2017 and 2018, the industry started to mature, and then investors finally came to the table. And then it went from being very uncool to being like the hottest thing for about an 18-month period. And so if you have passion for the problem though, and focus on, then, the rejection is just something that you go through, but it doesn't really matter. It's almost like it's irrelevant, because you have to solve the problem one way or the other. And so if that investor you talk to isn't into it, you just keep going until you find somebody that is.
Right. So what you're saying is you kind of really have to start with the passion and the idea. And that's kind of, if you don't have that kind of building block, then you can't really get anywhere. So I think another, sorry.
Yeah, and maybe some people are cut differently, but I think for myself, it's easier to give up if you don't feel that connected to it, right?
No, I think that makes sense. And I think that's definitely a common theme in the learning path, that you really just have to start with a passion. And we have another pre-submitted question from Anand. What is the biggest lesson that you learned in your entrepreneurship journey that you never learned in regular school?
Yeah, I think team building is something worth mentioning. That like you do some team projects when you're in school, so you get a taste of it. But in the real world, so much of your success is really dependent on your collaboration ability and the people that you surround yourself with. And so you don't get an individual grade anymore. It's not like I could get an A as a CEO of a company. And then somebody else next to me gets a B, but the company gets a C. Like, no, it's like you're all in it together, and it's the performance of the group that is the most important thing. And so look at learning opportunities where you get to work in a group, and then figure out what type of role you like, and maybe work with a lot of different types of groups, because you might find that you can work differently in different types of situations. And so there are those learning opportunities in school, but it's when you get out of school you realize just how important that is.
Right. I'm curious if you ever took any communications class, because that's something that I'm studying right now, and that's definitely something that I'm finding so valuable, is to really learn about kind of interpersonal relationships and how to better understand aspects of communication. I think that definitely plays a role into good team building.
Yeah, I had a bit of it, and then there's just general psychology as well. Like,
it's definitely that connection there.
Yeah, I think understanding what motivates people is particularly if you want to lead a company. Understanding what motivates people, and then you structure compensation or incentives or whatever based on that, because you can talk to two different people for the same role, and they're just approaching it with very different motivations. And so yeah, you have to be very, very comfortable with that. And know, I think the other important thing is know your own weaknesses. Like that's like self-awareness is possibly the most important skill that a young person can develop over time. So understand your strengths, that's great, but also understand your weaknesses, because that'll help you hire and surround yourself with people that are complementary and fill in those weaknesses. And everybody has things that they excel at, and has things that that they either don't naturally like as much, or they're not naturally as good at, that they're having to work on. And so if you can find good people though that are complementary, then as a team you're able to accomplish so much more.
So another pre-submitted question from Richard was, how can high schoolers get internships during this time? I don't know if any thoughts about that, or kind of maybe selling yourself and putting yourself out there to maybe find those opportunities, if you have any advice for that.
So I don't know about, I started my internships in college. So high school's early, but I know there's some people that can do that as well. I'd say find a business that you're excited about personally, and have an interest in, and reach out with a very well constructed cold email. Find a contact on LinkedIn, find a way to get to the right person, and send a well crafted email about who you are and that you're interested. And would be interested in a conversation to learn more, or would it be interested in an opportunity to intern. But I know a lot of successful people will respond to cold emails if they're sincere and well crafted and shows initiative. And I myself do that quite a bit. So find a business you're interested in, send a very thoughtful short note. You can't send like 3 pages, but like send like a couple really well constructed paragraphs.
Right.
And you'd be surprised if you do that to 10. Don't be surprised if you don't get a couple responses.
Right.
I think that's actually how I got my first internships in college too. I wanted to work in the movie industry, and I sent a bunch of cold emails to Paramount Pictures, Touchstone, like all the major studios, and ended up getting a couple internships that way.
Wow.
So yeah, going cold. I mean, if you have connections, great, but not everybody does. So, don't be afraid of going in cold.
Yeah, I mean, I can even speak on that. I mean, my work with Track started with an internship, so it's really about self-advocacy and yeah, just sending those emails and putting yourself out there. I think we're running a little bit over time. I know that was necessary with our technical difficulties, but if you guys have any other questions, this can be opened up to anything, not even just entrepreneurship now. You can just hear some fun facts about us. Do you have any other hobbies that you think people would find interesting?
Um, yeah, I still like to play basketball. This is with COVID this year. I haven't played, and so it's something
Yeah.
I miss. But I can spend time outside. I'm in Tahoe, Nevada at the moment, and there's just so much beautiful things to do here.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my from a personal level. I have a 3.5-year-old, a wife and a 3.5-year-old. So spend a lot of time chasing after him, and
Yeah.
thinking about how he can become an entrepreneur one day, I guess.
Yeah. Um, so someone asked, what is one book that you would recommend? I don't know if you do a lot of reading, but
Um,
do you know any books on entrepreneurship that you think? I don't know if you've
yeah,
read
it's,
any of
it's been,
those.
it's been a while since I read it, but the hard thing about hard things is good. I think that's Ben Horowitz.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
so, and there's there's like a startup stories book about all these kind of early stage companies,
Mhm.
are now big companies, and talking about how they were in the early stages. And so I think it's helpful to deconstruct when you hear about Google and eBay and all these big companies. It's really helpful to think about how they were when they were small, and so realize that all these big things in the world were created just by some individuals that the first step in the journey. So yeah, I think those are a couple good business books. You know, I think you find you find a camaraderie when you understand that even the most successful people started out and had to struggle in their early years.
Mm-hmm. So we got a question from a viewer, Devin. Thank you for sending your question, Devin. He's asking, what is your next company?
Um, I'm not talking about it yet, but so I have a background in urban planning,
Okay.
and I've been fascinated what makes cities work, including my career building my last business, and yeah, I think my what's out there now is my stated goal is to build a city. So I want to build an entire city from scratch. Um, but that's kind of like a multi-deck mission. And
Right.
so I'm deconstructing that into smaller pieces. And early next year I'm going to start and kind of start with the first phase of that vision. So the goal is to build the city. The how is what's going to be the basis of my next company.
Wow, that's amazing. I know that we're about 10 minutes over time, so I can wrap it up now. Thank you so much for attending this live, Ryan. I know that I even learned a lot talking with you. So just quickly, I have some other paths that you guys, viewers, can check out if you want. They're all up on Tracked. I have one on the hidden meanings behind the wizarding world of Harry Potter. I have one on artificial intelligence. Will robots really someday take over the world? I have one on Greek mythology, and I have tons more if you guys want to check them out. And then just quickly, we're going to talk a little bit about our next live event, which is on Sunday, October 11th, and that's from 2 to 2:30 Pacific time. So this is going to be about how to create and grow your own YouTube channel, and this is with a student leader and YouTuber Riley Gaither. So if you guys can make that, that would be awesome. We'd love if you guys can join us. And again, thank you guys so much for joining us today. And thank you, Ryan, again. All right.
Thank you
Bye,
so much.
guys.
Bye bye.
Bye. Thank